Good morning, 7th graders, and welcome back to day 2 of online learning. So what we did on Monday was we were starting to work with the food webs and looking at how food chains and food webs and energy in an ecosystem makes its way from plants all the way up to apex predators. So today we are extending that. You guys will see number 1. This video is going to be number 1. And so the second thing that you are going to need to do after playing this video is we are going to make our own food web. And I'm going to show you number 3 first and then go to number 2 because number 2 won't make sense without number 3. So you guys all have this food web assignment, which is in your Google Slides. So you guys are going to open that up. And you guys will see that I figured doing an ecosystem that wasn't something that we're super familiar with would be a little bit more engaging for you guys because I would rather learn about lions and elephants than I would about deer, which we see every day. So this is a design of food web for the African savanna. We have our directions. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, just so that you guys can see it on the video a little bit clearer. So we have our essential questions. How does energy flow through food chains and food webs? How do living things depend on one another? This is our learning target, which is just to design a food web and explain how energy moves through an ecosystem. And then these are your directions. They're just bullet points, so you can't mark them off. But this is going to be, you're going to do number 1, number 2, number 3, and then those subparts, and then number 4 and number 5. So you guys are going to have to do some reading, which is slides 3 and 4. It is not large. You can see that they are normal sized slideshow sizes. And then you guys are going to review food web examples and list of organisms. And then you're going to create 3 different food chain slides, which is right here. And I will give you a little bit more instruction on those as well. And then you guys are going to create your big food web using 10 organisms from the picture bank. And then there are 7 questions at the end. So for page 1 and for page 2, this is your reading. You do not have to do anything to these, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult if you do not read these. So I would suggest doing so. I can't check if you did, but it's your own learning experience. So then we have an example of a food chain. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller just so we can read it all. And this is an example of a food web within a forest ecosystem. This is a little bit more familiar to us. We've got blackberries and grasses and bunnies and frogs, and it looks like I don't know what that is, but it kind of looks like a squirrel. And then, so this is an example, and then what you are going to do is, these are the organisms in an African savanna ecosystem. So you may need to research the feeding habits of an animal to design your food chain / food web. For example, if you Google diet of a mongoose, you will find that they will feed on insects, birds, and reptile. So before I move on to chain number 1, 2, and 3, I want to show you what you guys are going to be doing before you start this slideshow, which is going to be right here, organisms in an African savanna chart. And so what I created for you guys, which you guys will all have a copy of, is you guys are going to do your research before you open up your slides so that you know what each one of these organisms eats and or creates for their food. So because some of them are going to be producers. So let's say for this first one, I know that this is going to be a producer because it is a plant. So it's not going to be a consumer. So I'm going to write producer. And then because it's not a consumer, we're just going to put a dash because it's not an herbivore, a carnivore, or an omnivore. It creates its own food. And so what they eat, it photosynthesizes. So I guess I would say sunlight. And it also takes CO2 and water, which this doesn't really matter. You don't have to write this if it's a producer. You can just put a dash through it, but I'm just reminding. reminding you guys of what photosynthesis needs. This is their inputs or the reactants of photosynthesis. So then giraffe, I know that it's going to be a consumer. And I know that it eats leaves. That's why they have such a long neck. So I know that it's going to be an herbivore because they do not eat meat. And then what they do eat, I don't know specifics. So what I did for you guys was I gave you two different links to different websites. So this first one was my favorite. So let's go ahead and go there. And I'm going to look up giraffes. Zebra, gazelle, wildebeest. Okay, so it's down here. So you guys can go ahead and look up. It's all in alphabetical order. So I'm going to go to giraffe. And I'm going to see characteristics, range and habitat. Let's see, diet. They mainly feed on leaves, fruit, and flowers of acacia trees. So leaves, fruit, and flowers of acacia trees. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say leaves, fruit, flowers of acacia trees. Perfect. So that is what I'm going to do for each and every single one of these. A B, you're going to put consumer or producer. If it ends up being like blackberries, which is a producer, it is neither an herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore, and they don't eat anything unless you want to put that they photosynthesize. You can do that as well. So I'm giving you options, but you need to fill out for every single one of these. There are 20 of them, and this should be pretty easy. You know what lions eat, but just double check. You know that you're going to know the herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore pretty well, but you need to double check what they eat because it's going to come in handy when you guys go back to the food web assignment. So for the food chain number 1, so you're going to have to use at least 3 organisms. The sun is not an organism. So the first one we're going to do is the sun directly goes to producers. That's what they always go to. So your food chain or food web will always have the base of a producer. So we know that flowers are a producer. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. And then I'm going to put my energy arrow. And so then what eats a flower, I am going to assume, see, I would know this if I did my chart for my animals. I'm going to assume this field mouse, no, elephant shrew, I believe that is what they called it. Elephant shrew eats flowers. And then, so at least 3 organisms, that's 2. I'm going to do one more, and I think that the snake, I don't know what this one's called. Let me see. Let me just double check. Snake is the black mamba, eats a mouse, or the elephant shrew. So this is my 3 organisms. What I don't want you to do is you go to food chain number 2 and do flower, elephant shrew, snake, and then what eats a snake? The hyena. I don't know if hyenas eat snakes, but you are not going to use these 3 organisms in your next one. So this food chain number 2, I want to see a different producer down here. I want to see you use grass, or I want you to see you use blackberries first. So I want these 3 food chains to look different. I don't want you to use the same 3 and then for the 4 and then for the 5. So I want you to switch up your producers, your consumers, and for your tertiary consumers, your primary, your secondary. So I want you to make them different for food chain number 1 and number 2 and number 3. If they are the same, you will be marked down points. So then this is where the really important one comes into play. So we have the arrows and we have all of the 20 pictures down here, and you are going to create a food web using at least 10 organisms from the picture bank. I will have a key for what these animals eat. So if you do this incorrectly, I will know, and then you're going to get marked off points. So on your base for your food web, you are going to have your 3 producers, because our producers always come first. Dink, dink, dink. And then you are going to click and drag your arrow. So what eats grass? And you can always change the direction of the arrows by clicking on the dots and clicking and dragging. If you guys have an extra mouse, I would suggest using the mouse instead of your touchpad, but if not, you can figure it out. It's pretty easy, but so then you are going to do your primary consumers, then your secondary consumers, and then your tertiary consumers. So this is what your start should look like, or something similar. And then you are going to continue to move your arrows and put in your consumers. Then you have your questions, which there are 7 of them. I'm going to move my face. There are 7 questions. These are 3. And there's a 4 here. So I need you guys to make sure that you guys are using full and complete sentences and that you are reading what the instructions are and completing each question to the fullest, to your fullest potential, because I've been getting some really, really skimpy answers, and I know that you guys can do so much better. So this is due, if you guys look on the on Google Classroom, it is due in January when we come back from Christmas break. I am not giving you anything that should take 2 weeks. So my suggestion is to get it done within this week or next week, pretty soon, so that you guys don't have to worry about it over Christmas, over your Christmas holiday, and then into the new year. I would prefer if you just get it done so that you don't have to worry about it and you don't come back on Monday being like, oh my God, we were supposed to finish that. I totally forgot because I was hyped up on or Christmas candy. So this is my instructional video to you. If you have any questions, obviously I am in the meet with you guys, and this is your time to shine. So first things first is you do the African savanna chart for the organisms, what they eat, if they're a producer, if they're a consumer, and then you are going to create your own food web assignment. So that is what your schedule looks like. So go ahead and get started.